Hello children, in this video we will begin with the fifth chapter in geography, precipitation. So children, what is precipitation? Precipitation is a kind of weather condition where something falls from the sky. It may be in the form of rainfall, snowfall, hailstones, dew, fog, or even frost. So, as the atmospheric condition changes, we see changes in the form of condensation. So, on winter mornings, we find dew. You might have seen it, right? In areas located at higher altitudes, snowfall occurs, while it rains in some other places. So, today in this chapter, we will learn the different types of precipitation, that is snow, hail, rain, dew, fog, and even frost. First, let's begin with snow. So, children, when the temperature in the atmosphere falls below the freezing point, vapor, that is a water vapor, directly turns into snowflakes, and this process is called as sublimation. Here, the vapor in the form of gas turns into solid. That is why it is called as sublimation. Precipitation in the form of solid particles of snow is called as snowfall. In high latitudinal and temperate regions, snowfall occurs at the mean sea level, that is the height above the sea level, while in the tropical regions, snowfall occurs at places located higher than the snow line. What is the snow line? Snow line is a boundary beyond which there is permanent snow. Okay? As snow is in the solid form, it does not flow like water. Layers of snow get deposited when the snow gets collected on a large scale. Then the transport and communication system of that area collapses. You can see in the picture, children, how snow has disrupted the traffic on the roads. People living in these regions have to protect themselves from frostbite. So, children, what is frostbite? Frostbite is the injury caused by freezing of the skin and the tissues that lie below the skin. It is most common on the body parts like finger, toes, nose, cheeks, and chins. Why, children? Because these parts are always exposed to the environment, and that is why they freeze faster. So when the snow in these kind of regions melt, so these regions get fresh water. Children, there are a difference in ice and snow. In areas that are located at higher altitudes and high latitudes, where the temperatures are below 0 degree, precipitation occurs in the form of snow. Now, snow is very, loose and can be easily crumbled, and it is opaque, it is white in color. This snow accumulates in the form of layers. Okay, as the snow falls, it gathers and gets collected layer by layer on top of each other. So because of the pressure from the upper layers, so as the snow is falling, there is lot of pressure that comes from the upper layers towards the lower layers. So what happens is that the lower layer becomes homogeneous. That means it becomes little hard. okay, because there is more and more snowfall occurring from above, and it becomes massive, huge, and transparent. So, massive transparent snow formed in such a way is called ice. So, children, you can see in the picture, snow is opaque, white, and very, loose, and whereas ice is very strong, solid, and transparent. So, when temperature drops below the freezing point, a layer of ice forms on the lake's surface. So, children, you might have, in movies, or if you have gone to any cold regions, if you have seen any lakes, you might have seen the upper layer of the lake is frozen, okay, and there is a lot of ice that is floating on the upper layer of the lake. So this kind of snow is not directly related to the snowfall that is occurring in that region. This layer or the ice is formed because of the temperature. The temperature is below the freezing point. So that is why the upper layer of the lake freezes and there is floating ice on these kind of reservoirs. Next, we will see the precipitation of hailstones. So children, how do hailstones form? So, when there is lot of heat on the earth's surface, okay, especially during the summer seasons, so there is upward airflow, okay, which blows in a very great speed, okay, upward, that is vertical flow of air. So because of this upward flow, the temperature of that air, okay, the air that is going on top, reduces, okay, it becomes cooler, and the condensation of the water vapor, that is the vapor that is there in the air, takes place. Now what happens is that in this process there are dark clouds formed in that area. Because of the upward movement of the air, these water droplets, okay, the droplets that are there, the vapor has condensed and turned into water droplets, okay, they go higher because the air is going on top. That is why the droplets are also along with the air going higher in the altitude. Here what happens is that as the droplets are going higher, the droplets solidify, okay, it changes into the solid form, that is ice, okay. So these droplets occur and hailstones stones are formed, okay. So now what happens is that as the hailstones are heavy, they fall towards the ground, okay, they come down, but before they fall down onto the ground, what happens is that because still there is upward flow of the air, they are repeatedly taken upwards, okay, like suppose the hail is falling down, so in the middle only there is the upward flow of air that is taking them up again, okay. So here a new layer of snow gets collected or gets attached to the hail that is already formed. So what happens is that the small hail that is already formed, there is more, droplets of solid snow, okay, that gets attached to that small snow. Now this happens many times because of the air that is pulling it on top. Now hence, because many layers are formed, okay, on that hail, okay, that is the ice, while the hail grows in size, okay, it grows bigger and bigger as it goes on top and comes down. Now when this hail becomes heavy, it falls down on the ground because of gravitational force and because of the weight has increased. So we call this type of precipitation as hail showers. So because of this hail, because of this type of precipitation, there is a lot of destruction caused to the farmers. That is, there is destruction of crops and also loss of life, because these hailstones are very heavy, and if they hit you, it will injure you, and there is loss of property also. If they hit any kind of roof, it might there may be holes that may be created on it, or if there is some kind of establishments that are not that strong, it might break because of these hail stones. In the picture you can see how the crops are being destroyed because of the hail. So children, here we will see rainfall experiment. Okay, so here what happens is that through this experiment we can create an artificial rainfall. For this, what we need to do is that there is a container that has to be taken, okay, which has a metal lid. Now after taking that container containing metal lid, you have to remove the lid. Now after removing the lid, we need to hit the lid on the upper side, okay, you can see in the second picture, with a nail and a hammer. But children, we need to take care of it that there are no holes formed. We need to only dent and punch the lid and not create holes. After doing this, we need to pour 1/3 of steamed water into the container. You can see that in the third picture. Okay. Now after putting the steamed water, immediately you need to close the lid of the container and see to it that the steam has not escaped from the container, and you have to close the lid tightly. Now on the lid, after closing the lid, you need to put some ice cubes on the lid and some rock salt. Okay, I have shown you with the picture here, rock salt and some water, okay, on that mixture. Now children, in this way we can have an artificial rainfall. Now what happens is that as the vapor in the container is light, okay, because the steam, the water that was there was steamed and it was hot, okay, so because of which the steam, the air that is there also is hot and it is light in weight, so it travels upwards. So as the lid is closed very tight, okay, so the vapor cannot go out. So because of the ice cubes above the lid, condensation of the vapor occurs. Okay, there is condensation occurring. Condensation means what? It means, converting of water vapor into water droplets, okay, into liquid. That is, drops are formed of water vapor. So consequently, what happens is that water droplets formed from the vapor accumulate, means they get collected on the inner side of the lid, okay, that is inside part of the lid, it gets collected on the lid. Now because of the punches, okay, that were hit by the hammer, the water droplets get collected together, and one by one, drop by drop, they fall in the form of rainfall. You can see that in the fourth picture. So similarly, in this way, our atmosphere also creates rainfall. Okay, we can see rainfall that is happening around in the monsoon season in Mumbai, in India. Okay, so the atmosphere also creates rainfall in the same way. So let's learn more about rainfall. So we generally get water in the form of rainfall. Okay, most of the agriculture is mostly dependent upon rainfall. The temperature of the air with water vapor reduces. it goes higher, condensation of the vapor occurs. Clouds form when the condensed water droplets and dust particles get accumulated. That means it gets collected. Now, the water droplets increase in size. And so what happens is that when they cannot float in the air, okay, it cannot take in the pressure, then the weight of that cloud becomes heavy. Okay, it cannot hold any more water vapor. So that is why those kind of water droplets fall down into the surrounding in the form of rainfall. So children, now we will be doing convectional rainfall. This is a type of rainfall. Let's see how and where does it occur. Now, in the equatorial areas, okay, I hope you all know what is the equatorial areas. That is the equator. You all can see on the map, okay, that is a 0 degree. The surface gets heated. As you all know, equator is very hot, as there is, the sun rays fall directly onto the equator. So that is why it is very hot. So the surface gets heated because of the sun's heat, and the air near it also gets heated. So as it gets heated, it spreads and becomes lighter. What? That is the air. The air becomes heated and it becomes light in weight. So what happens? As it gets lighter, it goes upwards, okay, into the sky. So the air cools down when it goes upward. As you know, as the altitude is higher, the cooler the air becomes. So this hot air which became light and went on top, when it reached top, okay, as it went on top, it became cooler. Now, what happens is that the moisture holding capacity of cold air is less. We have learned this in 8th standard in geography. Okay. So, similarly, condensation of water vapor occurs. Now, because cold air cannot hold water, so what will happen, children? Rainfall will occur. So, in equatorial areas, such a type of rainfall occurs. Which type, children? Convectional rainfall. Almost daily in the afternoons, because mostly in the afternoons it is very hot. Rainfall is accompanied, means along with rainfall there is lightning and thundering. In the Congo basin, if you see into the maps, in the Congo basin of Africa and the Amazon basin in the South American continent and even in the Southeast Asia, convectional rainfall occurs. See children, you can see in the picture. Such a rainfall occurs in a very limited area in the world. Why? Because it mostly occurs only near the equatorial areas, and especially where there is lot of heat and evaporation. Now children, what happens is that in the equatorial ocean, okay, we have oceans also beside the equator. So it doesn't, have convectional rains there in the afternoons. Why? Because near the ocean, the water is continuously, flowing from one place to another. So what happens is that the land gets heated faster than the water or the sea. So that is why in the afternoons, convectional rainfall occurs in the equatorial areas, but it does not occur in the oceans near the equatorial belt. Why? Because the ocean that is there is not stable. It is continuously flowing. It has waves, right? So that is why it does not get heated as much as the land in the equatorial areas. That is why convectional rainfall does not occur in the afternoons in the oceanic areas of equatorial belt. There is another type of rainfall, that is orographic rainfall. Now children, winds coming from lakes or seas or any kind of water bodies are having moisture in it. Okay, whatever winds that are coming from the lake, sea, river, wherever the water bodies are, it always has some kind of moisture in the air. They are obstructed, that is, there is some kind of obstacle on the earth, and they are mostly high mountains. Okay, there are many mountain ranges on the planet earth that come in the way of these kind of winds that carry moisture in them. That is, basically these kind of winds bring rainfall. Now they start going upwards. Okay, you can see in the picture, from the ocean or from the sea, okay, the wind comes. But as there is a mountain or as there is an obstruction, these winds, go on top. So what happens is that the temperature of these winds drop. Okay, as these winds go on top, okay, mountains is at a very high altitude, so obviously the atmosphere there is cooler, so this wind that is carrying the moisture has become cool. So as the temperature cools down of this air, okay, there is condensation that occurs. So after condensation, what happens children? There is rainfall that takes place. Thus, because of the obstruction of the mountains, this type of rainfall occurs, that is orographic rainfall. Now children, what happens is that the windward, that is the side of the area which is facing the sea or any kind of water body of the mountain, gets more rain. Can you see children in the picture? They get more rain. Why? Because when the water or the wind that carries the moisture, it when it travels from this side of, that is the windward side of the mountain, it rains entirely. Okay, so the windward side of the mountain gets more rain, so the amount of water vapor in the air reduces, okay, after crossing the mountain, because most of the rain has already fallen towards the windward side, and the moisture holding capacity of the air increases. How children? Because already the most of the air from that wind has fallen towards the windward side. So as it crosses the mountain and goes towards the leeward side, there is no water content in that air. Okay, so that is why the moisture holding capacity of the air increases. Okay, that air which is there has become empty now. There is less air, vapor in that air. So the leeward side of the mountain gets less rainfall. Can you all see in the picture? There is no rainfall, very less rainfall towards the leeward side of the mountain. And hence this side, okay, that is a leeward side, is also called as the rain shadow area. Okay children. So the effect of monsoon rainfall is important when we think of the Indian subcontinent. We have studied this in the previous standard children, that the rainfall occurring in India because of these winds is called as the orographic type of rainfall. Now children, let's see and look at this picture. This is a cross profile of Maharashtra and the orographic rainfall. Okay, so in Maharashtra also we can see that we have the orographic type of rainfall. Why children? Because Maharashtra is basically, there are many small and big hills, plateaus. Okay, so that is why most of the times we can see that the rainfall that occurs in Maharashtra is orographic. And Mostly if you see into this picture, towards a Konkan side, okay, that is facing the Arabian Sea, most of the rainfall occurs in this side. Okay, you can see the blue thing. Okay, so as the cloud or as the moisture carrying cloud or air passes the Sahyadri hills, the rainfall is already fallen towards the other side. Okay, so as it passes towards this side, okay, the rainfall becomes less. Why? Because it has already emptied whatever water content it had in the Konkan region. So why it happens, children? Because when there was evaporation, okay, so when the clouds or the wind that carried moisture traveled towards the Konkan area, okay, so as it was traveling, it faced the Sahyadri hills. Okay, so when the clouds are lower or the air that has moisture is lower, so as it is lower, it is hot. So that is why as it is hot, the moisture holding capacity is stronger. It can hold water. But as it goes higher, now you can see the black cloud, it has gone top, and suddenly you can see there is so much of rainfall that is occurring there. So why is it happening, children? Because the cloud has gone to a very high altitude, okay, to a very great height. Now as you go to a great height, what happens? The moisture holding capacity becomes lesser, it becomes cooler. So that is why it rains there. Okay, condensation occurs. So as this cloud moves ahead towards the Maharashtra plateau, what happens? There is no water remaining in that. So that is why this side of the Maharashtra plateau is called as the rain shadow region. In this way, orographic type of rainfall occurs. Next, we will see the cyclonic rainfall. So children, cyclone is the specific air formation when the pressure at an area is less. You can see in the picture. So when the air pressure of an area is less, so what happens is that wherever there is high pressure in the surrounding, that air comes towards the low pressure area. That is, all the wind and air comes towards the low pressure area. So this is called as the cyclone. Air from the surrounding regions comes towards the center of the cyclone. You can see in the second picture below there. It comes in the center and slowly it starts moving upward, okay, like a cone. As it rises, okay, as this air goes on top, the temperature of the air becomes cool. So what happens, children? Again, condensation occurs, and finally after condensation occurs, there is rainfall. So it rains in areas over which the cyclone passes. So children, you know that recently we had many cyclones in India during the monsoon season. Okay, so similarly, wherever this cyclone passes, it brings rain to that areas wherever it passes. So cyclonic rainfall occurs more in the temperate zones. Okay, and cyclones area is also quite extensive. That means whenever cyclone is formed, it doesn't rain in a very small region. It has, it captures a very vast area. So comparatively, cyclonic rainfall occurs in the tropical regions, is limited in extent, and it is stormy. That means there is a lot of storm created in this kind of rainfall. So children, orographic rainfall occurs in most of the parts of the world because many of the countries, like almost most of the countries, have mountains. Okay, So that is why orographic type of rainfall occurs in almost most parts of the world, and convectional rainfall is regional because it depends upon the high temperature, especially that is near the equatorial regions. So there is a certainty in the convectional rainfall. That means we know where convectional rainfall can occur, that is especially near the equatorial areas. But there is no certainty about the orographic and the cyclonic rainfalls. Okay, so it can occur anytime. So that is why what happens is that due to orographic and cyclonic rainfall, there is a lot, there is a thing that heavy rainfall can occur, floods can take place, droughts. If there is no rainfall, then droughts can take place, which is very bad for the nation, especially for the farmers. Okay. Now, children, this is a world map, okay, along with all the oceans and the continents. So, there are certain questions that are asked in your textbook. So let's answer those questions looking at this map. The first question is, which region experiences more rainfall? So children, as you can see in the index, we have the lighter shade of violet or purple, okay, that is less than 500 millimeter of rainfall. Then above that we have a darker shade, that is 500 to 1000, and the darkest shade is more than 1000. So the first question is, which region experiences more rainfall? So the darkest shade, we need to find the darkest shade. So we find the darkest shade here. Okay, so the tropical regions experiences more rainfall, that is this side, okay, that lies between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, these are the areas, that is a tropical region experiences more rainfall. The second question is, what is the reason for low rainfall in the central peninsula India? Now we have to see our country. So children, if you see India, okay, so this is the middle part of the country is called as a peninsula. So why there is low rainfall in this part, that is a peninsula of India? Because the leeward side, okay, that just now that we saw for the orographic, the Sahyadri or the Western Ghats that are there, okay, the central peninsula that is there of India falls on the leeward side. Leeward means what? There is no rainfall in that side. So that is why this area receives less or low rainfall, and this region is also called as the rain shadow region. Next question is, why does the eastern part of Central African continent gets less rainfall than the western part despite its location close to the equator? Okay children, so we have, what happens is that the eastern part of the African continent is a rain shadow region, okay, that is the eastern side of the continent, and the western monsoon winds, whereas the western part lies in the windward, that means there is more rainfall that side, okay, towards the western side. So the eastern part of Africa also comes under the influence of the northeast trade winds, but still receives rain because they are dry winds originating in the land. The next question is, why does the amount of high rainfall in the western part of European continent reduce in the eastern part? Okay, so now we have to see the European part. So children, what happens is that there are many mountain ranges in the western part of Europe. Okay. So what happens is that these mountains obstruct the rain, that the air that has water in it, the clouds coming from the west, it blocks it, and therefore the amount of rainfall received is high towards the west, but as it reaches the east it reduces, and that is why there is low rainfall, okay, in the eastern part of Europe. Next question, the final question is, why is rainfall more only in the eastern coast of Australia? You can see the eastern coast, right? Australia towards your right hand side. So why is there more rainfall in the eastern? So the eastern part of Australia has mountains, okay, many mountains. So the winds blowing from the Pacific Ocean, you can see the Pacific Ocean, right? So the winds that blow from the Pacific Ocean gets obstructed because of these mountains. So that is why which type of rainfall occurs? There is orographic rainfall towards the east. And so the formation of rain shadow zone towards the west. That is why rainfall is more only in the eastern coast and it is less in the western coast. Now children, we have learnt about different type of precipitation. Recently we saw about the rainfalls. So how is rainfall measured? So the instrument that is used to measure rainfall is called rain gauge. Okay, you can see that in the picture, right? So the funnel that is used, you can see the funnel, the namings are given in the diagram. The funnel that is used in the rain gauge has a specific diameter. Okay, so the rain falling in this funnel is collected in a bottle that is fitted in the gauge. The collected water is then measured with the help of the measuring jar. You can see the measuring jar. In areas of heavy rainfall, the reading of the rain is taken. So whenever there is, heavy rainfall, they, take this measurement of rain. Okay, they take the measuring jar after every 3 hours and see how much rain has already occurred. The measuring jar reads in millimeters. The gauge is kept in open ground, okay, where rainfall happens and there is no obstruction in middle, on a 30 centimeter high flat mount. Okay, you can see the mount that is there. Hence the rainwater is collected without any obstruction because it is built in an open surrounding. So children, you can see the picture of the instruments like the funnel, the measuring jar, and even the bottle. So the third picture is a new type of a rain gauge, that is self-recording rain gauge. That is an automatic, automatically it measures the rain. It is a modern type of rain gauge. Even snowfall can be, measured using this rain gauge. You know how it is measured? When the snow melts, okay, so it turns into liquid, right? So in the same way, snowfall is also measured using this rain gauge. Now children, let's see how fog, dew and frost occurs in the atmosphere. When the condensation or solidification of the water vapor in the atmosphere occurs near the Earth's surface, okay, then we can see precipitation in the form of fog, dew or frost. So let's see how fog is formed. So the temperature of the layers of the air near the surface of the earth reduces. Okay, it comes down, that is the temperature falls. So as the temperature comes down or reduces, water vapor condenses. Okay, as we saw in rainfall as well. Okay, when the temperature comes down, it condenses. In this process, what happens is that the vapor turns into microscopic water particles, tiny, tiny water particles, okay, and float in the air. When the density or the weight of these droplets in the air increases, fog occurs. Okay, you can see in the picture fog. Next is dew. When moisture carrying air, okay, the air that has moisture in it near the earth's surface comes in the contact with very cold objects, okay, what happens? Condensation of the vapor takes place. You might have seen it even with the glasses when, during the winter season, or even in the refrigerator, in the glasses, the outside layer, you can see condensation occurring in the outside part. Okay, they turn into very small water droplets. Okay, there are tiny water droplets outside the glass or wherever the cold object is there. These water droplets stick to the surface of any object that is cold. Now in the picture there is leaves that are cold. You might have seen, right, dew in the winter season on leaves or any cold object. So when it gets into contact with this cold objects, this is called as dew, the tiny droplets of water that are collected on cold objects. Next is frost. If the temperature of the air is less than 0 degree, that is below the freezing point, so what happens? The water droplets stuck to the surface of cold objects freeze. Okay, when it is very, very cold, unbearable cold. So this frozen water droplet is called as frost. You can see at the corners of the leaves, and in the second picture, all the surface of the plants are having frost in it. It is frozen. Why? Because the temperatures are very, very low. Now dew and frost occur on a large scale during winters. Now children, let's see what are the effects of precipitation. So, the main source of potable water available on the earth is precipitation. Okay children, whatever water mostly we get, it is because of precipitation. It may be snowfall, it may be rainfall. Okay, so as more and more rainfall happens, it is very destructive. Okay, so in the absence of rains, when there is no rain, what happens? There is drought. So when there is excessive rainfall, floods may occur because of heavy rainfall, so because of which there may be loss of life and property. We have seen this in Mumbai, right? There is so much of flooding that happens during the monsoon season. If precipitation does not take place, like if there is no rainfall, then what happens? Then there are conditions like drought. Okay, you can see in the pictures in the left hand side, you can see flooding, crops are being destroyed because of excessive rainfall, unseasonal rainfall, and towards the right hand side, you can see how the ground or the land is totally dried out. This is called as drought because there is no rainfall. So there is a shortfall of food. So because there is no rainfall, or even if there is excessive rainfall, what happens? The crops are destroyed. And when the crops are destroyed, what happens? There is shortfall of food. And food may have to be imported. Imported means we'll have to buy food from other countries or other states where there is proper rainfall. So farmers' condition becomes very, very bad in this type of situation. So our country gets affected because our country is known as an agricultural country. Okay, most of the occupation is based on agriculture, and our agriculture mostly depends on rainfall. And so if there is excessive rainfall, or if there is no rainfall at all, so it directly affects our economy. Okay, so it is not only the condition, bad condition for the farmers, but also for the entire country and its economy. So economy of an agrarian country, that is our country is an agrarian, means what? We are having the main occupation as agriculture in India. So large extent is dependent on the monsoons. Hence, the rainfall in India is very, very important to the entire nation. A good rainfall at the right time increases the production of crops, while if there is unseasonal rainfall, then there can be damage of crops. So the rainfall in India is quite erratic. Erratic means what? It falls anytime. Sometimes there is no rain at all, okay, and sometimes there is rain even when it is not required. Okay, when the crops are there, it is a time for harvesting of crops. That time rainfall happens and the entire crop is destroyed. Now, because of the other forms of precipitation, visibility reduces because of highly dense fog. Okay, you can see in the pictures how the visibility is being affected, like on the roadways, railways, airways. So it affects the means of transportation. Accidents may take place in such kind of conditions. So that is why it has to be very, very carefully done. Trains, flights, and other transport services may have to be cancelled if there is thick fog. Frost is harmful to crops and causes accidents if spreads to crops and causes lot of damage to the crops. That is why frost is also very, very dangerous to the crops. Fog and dew damage some crops. Okay, it can damage some type of crops by spreading some kind of diseases among the crops or vegetables, plants, while it can also be beneficial for some other crops. Okay, not all crops are similar. Some may get damaged because of fog and dew, and some may benefit out of it. So children, now we will study about acid rain. So because of the air pollution in industrial areas, okay, continuous emission of smoke from the funnels, various gases get mixed in the air. Okay, so different acids are created because of the mixing of the chemicals from the smoke that comes out of industries and factories. So when the water vapor in the air reacts, okay, chemically, we have learnt this in the chemical weathering, right? So when the water reacts with the air chemically, with these gases, okay, that are being emitted from the industries, such as the gases such as nitric acid, sulfuric acid, okay, so what happens? It gets mixed with the water present in the atmosphere. So precipitation of water with dissolved acids like the nitric acid and the sulfuric acid, when they reach the ground, such rainfall is called as the acid rain. So children, because of these kind of rains, they are very, very harmful to the living organisms as well as the non-living objects. You can see in the picture that how the trees are dried out or reacted because of rainfall, that is the acid rain, that has reacted with the trees. And then below you can see the monument Taj Mahal. Earlier, when there wasn't much of pollution, Okay, much of industries in the country, the Taj Mahal was white because of the marble, but because the marble has reacted with the chemicals, it has turned yellowish. So that is why acid rain is very harmful to not only the living organisms but also the non-living objects. Okay, children, with this we have now completed with the explanation. Thank you for listening, children. Take care.